I want to welcome you to day 2 of the Pro Author Training. I am really grateful to all of you for signing up for this training. And I just wanted to start off with that to let you know that it's just, I really feel honored to be in this position to be able to talk with you and share with you what I know about pitching, about writing, about, more importantly, what it's like to really be inside of an industry that is looking for content, that is looking for story, that is looking to change people's perspective, that is looking to help us understand this human experience and also to entertain. So there's all those things that are involved. And I just wanted to start off with that to again, really thank you so much. I really appreciate you showing up and giving me this platform to be able to talk with you again about what I know. This is great. So day 2 of the training, let's dive right in. I'm going to be sharing my screen and I've got it figured out. So we're a little bit in better shape than we were yesterday as far as getting the whole technology thing going on. So let's just go ahead and do that. We'll share the screen. There I am. And here we go. Okay, let's see what's going to happen here. I think it's going to work. There we go. Look at that. Amazing. And I'm even in the screen myself. So that is pretty cool. All right, so again, day 2 pro author training. So this is all about activating the pro author inside of you. We're going to be getting to a lot of other sort of really nitty gritties of pitching and things like that later in the week. But this is our last day to really talk about what it means to be able to step into that pro author that's inside of you or that wants to come out or that needs a little fine tuning to be able to present your work in a way that's going to get results, right? So that's what this is all about today. I think you're really going to love this training because my goal for today is really to give you the confidence and the inspiration to think that, you know what, maybe I can really do this. And then you actually do it. That is my day 2 goal. So let's get to it. So this is, again, all about activation. So what does activation mean? Activation means to turn on, to make active, or to make more active. So those of you that have written your manuscript, written your book proposal for my nonfiction writers who are currently building their agent list or who have pitched and haven't gotten results, this is time to sort of amp these things up. Like, let's really get this stuff going. And for those of you who are still working on your manuscript, still working on your proposal, this is also going to help you a lot. And if you haven't started any of those things, you're at ground zero, so to speak, this is going to help just flip that switch to give you the ammunition and the energy that you need to really see this through and to build yourself a long-lasting career, because that's the game, right? So let's get into how we do this. It begins with saying yes to what's uncomfortable. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. Saying yes to persistence and saying yes to evolve into a pro author. And I just wanted to pause on that pro author term. You hear me use that a lot. It's kind of like one of my taglines. I love the term pro author because I think that it separates the aspiring author from the pro. It even separates the self-published author from the pro. And what I mean by that, not to diminish self-published authors, because my gosh, we've got so many great self-published authors, even in our group, that are doing great things, but they want traditional publishers. So when we say professional, when I say professional, I'm talking about traditionally published authors with agents, authors with book deals. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Now, the secret to getting ahead is getting started, said our dear Mark Twain, author himself. And this is true. This is true for everything in life. We know this to be true. It's just getting started. So again, no matter where you are on your traditionally publishing pathway, the trick is to just get started or re-energize, reactivate where you are, and then use that as momentum to keep going, right? So I'm going to give you now 9 pro author activation steps that I've come up with that I feel like are the really best ways to stay energized, the best ways to become a good finisher, the best way to feel like and behave like you're in this industry. That's what I want you to get, that you are in this industry. And it really begins with kind of a mental switch, just a flip of the switch that you can accept and allow yourself to actually be in this industry, that you feel like you're credible. Now, granted, you might have things that you want to work on. Obviously, totally. We all do. And we're always a work in progress. That's what we're here for, to be a work in progress, to get just evolving, get better, get better, get better every single step of the way. And that's really what it's about to be a pro author as well. So I'm just going to pause for a quick second and let you know that there was a time way back when, I'll share a little story, when I was living in Los Angeles and I was looking for an agent. And I had written a bunch of spec scripts. And at the time I was looking to write for television, and spec scripts, if you don't know what they are, they're examples. Oh, excuse me, there goes my light. They're examples of your work. Examples of your work to help you get hired to be on a show, right? So you track a show for a while and then you write that show. Now, I'd written some really solid scripts that I was very, very proud of. And those opened the door for an agent for me. But this agent asked, what else do you have? And we talked about various shows, and I had to go back to the drawing table and spend some time working on another script for tracking a different show. And by the time I submitted this script to him months later, he said that he liked it, but the stakes weren't high enough. The stakes weren't big enough. And once again, I had to go back to the drawing board. So why I'm sharing this with you is because while I'm going to give you these sort of pro activation steps, these 9 steps that I really want you to grab onto and pick the ones that work best for you. And so you might change them around. Sometimes do this, sometimes do that, whatever. It's your toolkit. Think of it like that. It's your toolkit. But why I wanted to share that story with you is because at the end of the day, your book is about the writing. All the pro activation steps I'm giving you are ways to show up in the industry, ways to present yourself, and it's absolutely going to have a massive impact on your ability to get an agent. But the other thing that's going to have a massive impact on your ability to get an agent is the writing. That's what we're talking about tomorrow. Today, we're talking about the first piece, the you, okay? So let's get going here into our first slide. And I love this. If you want to be successful, find someone who has achieved the results you want and copy what they do, and you will achieve the same results, said Tony Robbins. This is absolutely 100% true, which is why my activation step for my number 1 activation step is channel your success icon. Model their behavior. Now, I want to talk a minute about the 3 people that I have on the screen. The first is Shonda Rhimes, and Shondi and me, she doesn't know it, but we go way back. I love this woman. She is a powerhouse. She's the creator of Grey's Anatomy, Scandal. She is responsible for Bridgerton. She is written multiple books. She is just like this extraordinarily, and a single mother of 3. I mean, like, how do you do it, Shonda? But she's amazing. And she's someone that, has a lot of qualities that when you want to be successful, that you can tap into. Gordon Ramsay. We know Gordon, there's a lot of qualities about Gordon that have made him successful. If you like that kind of personality, tap into some of the things that he's done to be successful. Really analyze these people. Pick your success icon. It doesn't have to be an author. It can be someone like Shonda Rhimes, Gordon Ramsay. It can be someone that lives on your block. It can be the mayor of your town. It doesn't matter. It can be a mom or a dad that you see on a regular basis that you're like, how the heck do these people do it? You know what I mean? It can be anybody that you feel has qualities that you want to emulate. And the key, my friends, my dear authors, is to model their behavior. Now, my last photo here is of Santa Montefiore. Santa Montefiore is one of my all-time favorite writers. She's just lovely, lovely woman, and she's written well over 20 books. She writes a novel a year. I don't know how she does it, but she's got a formula. And I love to listen to her, hear what she says about her writing, how she got started, how to write what you know, write what moves you emotionally. That is what her best-selling husband, Simon Sebag Montefiore, once told her when she wanted to write. Write what moves you emotionally, write what makes you want to cry. That's what you should be writing about. And she took his advice, wrote her first book, and she has not stopped. 20 years later, she's a book a year. She's repped by Curtis Brown UK. Check them out. They are an amazing, amazing agency. They rep both talent, film, books, the whole gamut of things. That's Santa Montefiore, and she's as humble as the day is long. So again, pick your success icon. Who are you going to model? Ways to model success behavior. So be committed. Successful people start, and once they do not stop. Be a smart finisher. Okay, be committed. Number 2 is approach and perspective. Act confidently. We talked about confidence yesterday. So hopefully that lit a fire under you to think about ways to become more confident in your own life. And this can help. What can help this is to think positively. The glass is full, okay? The glass is always, always full. It is in your perspective. Follow success morning rituals. This is super important. You might have your own rituals, and if you do, share them in the group. I'd love to hear about them. Share them in our Pro Author Activation Lab and let others maybe jump in on that. You might have some writing rituals. Santa Montefiore lights a candle before she starts, and her desk is absolutely clean, except for a couple family photos. It is like just her and her computer. And she's got a soundtrack that she listens to that inspires her to write, that's based on her book. Love this idea. I do the same thing. It works really well. It gets you into the mood. It gets you into the emotion of it. And guess what? If you're writing a memoir, or even, it doesn't even matter, anything fiction or even nonfiction, because nonfiction, you're sharing a prescriptive typically, because when I work with nonfiction writers, it's usually on the self-help personal growth, right? So you're sharing a problem and you're sharing a solution. And 9 times out of 10, this is something that you've gone through yourself. And when you tap into this soundtrack and you play these songs, it's so hard not to be moved by them emotionally. Guys, that is what makes a good writer. That is what you can share on the page. That is putting yourself on the page. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go down the road. Number 3 way to model success behavior is to remove distractions. Really remove distractions. It's about showing up like a CEO of your own business. Because remember, you're an author. Being an author is a business. Treat it like a business, gosh darn it. Treat it like a business and plan the night before. What are you going to do the next day? Most successful people, and that is a big thing that Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul and that whole series, he always talked about planning the night before. That's one of his success principles. That's a really good one. Mark it out. Get it clear in your mind, and you can start the day off with a bang. Cut the noise factor. Some people can work with white noise all around. That might be just coffee shop noise, which is totally cool and fine. But if you've got kids around, if you've got, there's a construction going on, it's really hard. I don't care what you tell me. I'm going to argue with you all day long on this one. It's really hard to remain like clear, focused. So pick your times. Obviously, when we're parents, I'm a parent of 2 teenagers, so I'm past the, having to be hands-on with little ones, but there is a trade-off there. There is a trade-off, and it's not easy. It is not easy unless you can afford to have help. And if you can't, I gave up when I lived in Russia. I had a nanny for my daughter, and when we came back to the States, I was like, where'd my nanny go? I didn't realize what a big impact that was, and how my nanny really helped me to free up my day so that I could actually get work done. It was a lot harder when I didn't have her around. So it is a trade-off, but we can talk about that in a different talk and a different day about ways to sort of work within the parameters of your life. The other thing is that you want to do is create a creative bubble for yourself, and this helps to remove distractions, make it your space. This is a space that nobody else gets to enter. It might be a space that's in a room where, you know, it might be your living room, on your dining room table or whatever, but it can still be your space. Get creative there. Clean up, gosh darn it, and get organized. Absolutely get organized. And that is the key. I'm not sure. I'm going to take it back. There is sort of a creative organization, and there's you might know of him. There's an artist called, oh, it's not Jackson Pollock. Let me think of it. James Rehnquist, I think is his name. Anyway, he's a pop artist. He's no longer living. He died a few years ago, but he was one of the artists like Andy Warhol and de Kooning and things like, and he was during that time, right? And his artist studio was a disaster. So not for nothing, sometimes us creative souls can work effectively in chaos. So you decide what your organized chaos is going to look like, whether it's like Santa Montefiore, it's this clean, beautiful desk and just a couple of pictures, or it's kind of an organized artist loft studio creative mess, but you can actually accomplish things. You'll know what works for you by the amount you are able to actually accomplish, right? And we already talked about getting help. So I'll move on to number 4, create a timeline. Professional people create a strategy for themselves. They also see the big goal and then they chunk it down into bite-sized pieces. As my friend Heidi always says, think of it like an elephant and chunk it down into bite-sized pieces. Not sure I love that analogy, Heidi, but it will, it does do the illustration certainly for this particular point of creating a timeline, creating smaller goals for yourself so it feels manageable. I mean, there's no way in the world you can build a house just by, oh my gosh, I have to build this house. You have to think about the house you want to build and then go back to square one and think about hiring a contractor, think about looking for the land, think about paying for it, think all these things. And then the contractor has to hire various people to do various things. So it is a work in progress. That's what being professional means, that you understand that, you have a strategy, and you set realistic small goals. All righty. Moving on to number 2. Read Mel Robbins' 5-second rule and watch the TED Talk. This is really great. If you haven't seen it already, Mel's whole concept is, I've got it here for you. Mel's whole concept is this: the 5-second rule. The moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, you must 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then physically move, or your brain is going to stop you. Let's read that again before we go on, right? The 5-second rule is the moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, to write down your idea, to send off a query, to work on your query, to stop procrastinating. Okay, you getting my drift? You must 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and physically move, or your brain will stop you. It's like getting out of bed. You don't want to get out of bed. Your alarm just went off because you set it for earlier, because this is going to be your time to write at 6 a.m. for an hour before you got to get kids off to school or go to work, whatever the case may be. And you don't want to get out of bed and you're lying there and you're like, oh no, you got to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and go, or your brain is going to stop you and you'll hit the snooze button. The countdown triggers a different part of your brain. Think about it. And taking the action within those 5 seconds kills the brain's ability to stop you. Isn't that incredible? That's insane. Read that book, the 5-second rule. That's number 2, okay? That is going to keep you on track, and that is going to activate this pro author in you because you're going to be unstoppable. Then number 3 is to be a truth teller. You cannot hide behind the truth. An agent is going to see that you can't hide behind the truth, or they're going to see that you are hiding behind the truth. And it's going to show up in your writing and it's going to fall flat. Okay, so if you're not going to go all the way, if you're not going to go all the way in, you need to rethink this. You need to rethink the book you're writing. You need to rethink your goal to write a book right now. You have got to tell the truth, your truth, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. It is scary to be vulnerable because it's uncomfortable, it's risky. But that's what people want in a book. They want you to be vulnerable. I'm thinking about movies. You know me, I always think about the entertainment aspect of it because, hey, let's remember, book to film, people, book to film. There's Wild. I mean, the list goes on. Eat, Pray, Love. So many books. You got to allow yourself to be vulnerable, because what that does is it makes it easier for the reader, for the audience, to be vulnerable too in their own private moment. This is a movie that's way back, and it may have also been a book. I'm not sure. Terms of Endearment. Has anyone seen that one? That's with Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger. Oh my God, what happened to Deborah Winger? And Jack Nicholson, Dear Jack. So this is a story about a daughter who gets cancer, and about her relationship with her mother up to the time that she dies, and how people deal with grief. And I remember going to see this film when I lived in New York, and I went with a friend, and he brought a box of tissue. And I'm like, why'd you bring this box of tissue? He said, trust me, this one is going to make you cry. Oh my gosh. We both went through this box of tissues. It was like tears, 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 tears. But if that author of that story didn't bring to the table his or her vulnerability and put that out there, that would have been a missed experience for every single person in that audience, or every single person who read the book. If it was a book, it would have been a missed experience. I remember when my mom read The Bridges of Madison County. We were at this hotel in Palm Springs, and I went down to the pool, and there she was reading this book, sobbing. My mother sobbing. I couldn't even watch it. It upset me so much. But the fact that that book moved her emotionally, it was something I wouldn't even read, because I was like, if this could make my mother cry, I can't even touch it. But that's the power of it. And you've got to allow yourself to be vulnerable. If you want to activate the pro author in you, you have to get to the end of that pier, the end of the plank, and you have to jump off. You have to do it. So let's get to the next slide, because, here's the interesting thing. If you're questioning that you don't think maybe vulnerability is you don't think that that's the right choice, because vulnerability, you've always heard, is weak. It shows weakness. That is a myth. You see those rocks in this screen? I put that up because I wanted to show you, to illustrate what kind of strength actually it takes to be vulnerable. And the reason it's strength is because most people don't have the you-know-whatsies to do it. Okay. But you're an author who's going to get an agent who wants to get a book deal. And that means you need to be vulnerable. And what's really cool for fiction writers, not so much for nonfiction, because you really are putting yourself out there, but fiction writers, you get the beautiful opportunity of kind of staying behind your character and doing this. So you can create a character that is vulnerable as all get out. You can create that character, but it's a sense of you, because you've walked the walk, you've been there. You're offering your vulnerability, but you're illustrating it through your character, their realizations, their decisions, their behavior, right? So you get a little bit of a safety net in terms of vulnerability, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to go there. You do have to go there. So let's remember that. And again, the readers are going to thank you for it. They're just going to thank you for it all day long. This is what makes great books. We've talked about thinking about your favorite book, what it was, what it is, and why. Because the author was giving you an opportunity to feel something, which means vulnerability. The author was putting themselves on the page. Just love that so much. Okay, number 4, decide to trust the writing process. This is difficult to do sometimes, because things are going to show up like impatience and irritation that you have to rewrite, and frustration, and maybe just, being pissed off that you have to go back and do something again. But when you take a deep breath and you trust that this is the process, remember what I said about Schitt's Creek. I think I said it yesterday, and how these two co-creators and writers of that incredible Netflix series spent 7 years creating their characters. They trusted the process. They knew they weren't ready to move forward until they nailed those characters, because the actors wouldn't have been able to play them, right? Wouldn't have been able to play them. They wouldn't have translated to the audience. So what this means is trusting the writing process is when you don't think it's working, but you write it anyway. I love this. Let me know if you love this in the group or in the comments, if you're able to make comments right now in the Zoom. I'm just sorry, guys, I'm just fixing this light. It broke and now it's not hanging up here the way I want it to. Okay, great. So you don't think something's working, but you write it anyway. This means not only in trusting the process, but trusting yourself, trusting your own creativity to show up in a way that actually allows you to move forward with your project. Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to find 2 things when you write it anyway. You're either going to find, oh my gosh, that was actually pretty good, or I really like that, or I like that one line, or this opened me up to recognize that this is the direction I want my story to take, or I need to include this chapter, or I forgot that I wanted to say this, or oh my gosh, this is the most important part. Had you not been willing to work through it and allow yourself to write it anyway, you wouldn't have gotten those ahas. And those ahas are things that are golden little nuggets that you need to hold on to. Okay, hold on to those golden nuggets, because they are part of the whole writing process. And it's kind of like I talk a bit about driving from Phoenix to San Diego, and being in San Diego being your book being published, right? You've got a publisher, and now it's going to be published, and it's the whole traditional publishing pathway, right? And you're driving along on this road from Phoenix to San Diego, and you might pull off occasionally, but you always get back on. And what this means when you think it's not working, but you write it anyway, it's that trusting that instinct that, you know what, I am headed in the right direction. I am headed in the right direction. Okay, so that's really important when it's in terms of activation. It's like when you try this and that, and you use your sense of creative freedom to find out what things are about. Don't stop yourself. Sometimes we might think, oh my gosh, this is kind of crazy. I'm writing, and it's going to be a book. This is a thing I'm doing. And we sometimes come up with reasons of why, how do I say this? Why not to move forward? But this is the creative process, and you've got to allow yourself the freedom to explore your ideas and see where they lead. That is a key to a successful person in any field. Just think about anybody. Think about Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, any of these people who are like tech wizards who, I don't know, we can thank or not thank for some of the ways that the world operates right now. But still, had they not tested and tried this and tried that and gave themselves the freedom to explore, there was a lot of things in life we wouldn't have, including probably Thomas Edison, electricity, and all these things, right? So that's you, okay? Give yourself the creative expression and freedom to move through it. So you have to go through the process yourself. You have to go through the process yourself, and you learn it yourself, and you learn it by doing. That's how it gets done. At the beginning stages, this is a solo effort in many ways. Not to say there's not help and support, like you're here for this training, and I'm here to offer as much support to you as I can. But again, it's in the doing that you will learn, that you will grow, that you will find out, is this working? Is this not working? All righty. And then number 5, feel that fear and do it anyway. That's a great book, by the way, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. But writing is a joyful, creative process. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. They might turn out not to be mistakes. And even if they are, you learn from them and move on. So there really aren't any mistakes at all, but you've got to remember to get started. I want to pause for a second here and just talk about how all these things, if you can imagine how they are activating you as a pro author. It's like each one of these things that I've talked about so far is an electrical wire, and you're starting to blend them all together. It's like you're twisting each one is a color, and you're twisting these wires together, and you're going to attach them all to a plug at the end. And that plug is going to be inserted into the wall. And that is your activation. So to be in the pro author mindset in this space, each one of these is a wire, and they've got to be joined together. Okay. And these, think of them as energy, as electricity, and things that can help, again, move you forward in the direction that you want to go. So if it seems big and scary, you wake up in the morning and you do it anyway. Martin Scorsese. I wanted to throw that quote in there because this is a man who, again, we have to go back and look at people who have done big things before in the creative field, particularly, because writing is obviously creative expression, whether it's fiction, nonfiction. You are expressing an idea, you're communicating an idea in a particular way, and it's going to have your flavor. It's going to have your, fingerprints all over it, which is why it can seem big and scary. It can also seem big and scary because maybe you've never done this before. Maybe this is the first time. So it can seem big and scary. But the way to get it done is to wake up in the morning and do it anyway. When Martin Scorsese made this quote, he was talking about some of his biggest films that he did that he was a little apprehensive to do because he didn't know how he wanted to shoot a certain thing. He didn't know if he could get a certain actor, or there was something within that story that he'd never done before. And remember, all creative people, no matter how successful, they always know that they're putting themselves on the line, and that their job is to serve, and their job is to create emotional experience, and they want to show up giving it their best. So that alone is scary, right? But they do it anyway. They absolutely do it anyway. And that is you. That is the pro author mentality. That is how to activate the pro author in you. It's getting up and doing it anyway, despite the fact that you feel like you might not succeed. You do it anyway. All righty, so let's move on here. And number 6, so this is really key, guys. You must be an active participant to activate. This can't all be going on in your head. Like, all these things that you have to do, but you're not doing them. The result of that is no result. You actually have to be the active participant in order to activate these things, in order to be a pro author, living in that activated space where you're making things happen, you're writing books, you're getting it done, you're connecting with agents. The participant is you. You are the participant. You make it happen. Without you, there's nothing. Without you, there's nothing. And I know that's scary, and I know it can feel overwhelming. But what else are you going to do? Think of it like, what if you didn't do this? How would you feel about that? Walk the walk, step out there, put yourself out there, and get your feet wet. Continue moving forward. Continue moving forward. I want to pause for 1 second and talk about a little bit more about self-published authors who are looking to get into the traditionally published space, or if you've had in the back of your mind, well, if it doesn't work out, I can self-publish, okay, as a default, right? So first of all, the self-published authors, this is a general broad stroke, so it doesn't apply to everybody, but sometimes it can be scary to decide that you're going to go the traditional publishing route. And again, that's totally understandable. There are reasons you decided to self-publish, but there's a lot of pride, excitement, and readiness that goes into making that decision to become traditionally published and look for an agent. So use it to your advantage. You have readiness. You've shown that you are, you're capable, right? You're capable. You've gotten your feet wet. You've written something. You've finished books. You finished writing a series. You finished writing just a separate, individual books. You have finished writing things. So you are in a way, you've got a lot going for you because, well, of course you've got a lot going for you, but in the sense of being able to write a book, opposed to someone who's just still trying to figure out how the heck to do that, you're a step ahead. So that's great. You already know you can finish. So use that as a little bit more fuel to activate you into the space of getting an agent. It's a great thing. Absolutely great thing. But there is no magic. There's just no magic. It really is all about you, the writing, the thinking, and the imagining of it. This is you. This is you. It's about you. Okay. And moving forward now, power posing. Anyone ever done this before? This is really important. And I was reminded by my dear Shonda Rhimes, about power posing. She power poses. Okay. And if Shonda's power posing, I'm power posing. And this is something that really does work. It actually affects your brain, and it can have a great effect on you finishing what you started, on you going deeper to find the right agents for your book. There's a lot of research that goes into finding the right agents for your book. But once you do, you'll see what I mean, and you'll understand why it requires time and effort and things like that, or personalizing queries, right? It can feel daunting, all these queries that you have to personalize, but you get in this power pose before you do it. And trust me, it actually makes a big, big difference. It gives you a lot of confidence. This is the number one power pose, our Wonder Woman and Beyonce. This can be done, men. This can be done with you too, guys. Anybody can do this power pose. Doesn't matter who or what you are. You can do this power pose and hold it for 3 minutes. Does this sound crazy and woohoo? I hope not. I hope you guys are really actually taking this seriously. You don't have to do your power pose for anyone but you, but get into that power pose state and hold it for 3 minutes, and take deep breaths while you're doing it. And it might feel a little bit weird at first, but it really helps to get you going. It helps to keep the hum. Remember, we talked about that yesterday. It helps to keep the hum. And like I said, if Shonda Rhimes is power posing, I am power posing. I don't know about you, but give it a try. And before you start writing, before you get to your working on your project, it might be something you want to have as your ritual to kick it all off. This is called activating that pro-author mentality. Number 8 here is another way to get into the pro-author mindset and behavior, as well as in your thinking, is to really connect with the industry. Now, you're connecting right now, which is great. Webinars are great. Getting with a coach is great if you need help along the way, sometimes on an ongoing basis, sometimes in one-offs, things like that. That's totally fine too. Conferences, I really think, are awesome, because particularly if you can get in person and see agents in person, this is going to help them know you, and you can pitch to them directly. It's only going to make you more accomplished with your work, and it gives you a place to network. This is something I've bolded because put in caps, because I really want to make a note of this. It seems like in many ways we've forgotten how to network because our worlds have become so virtual, particularly through the pandemic. I can remember back in the day going to various events and introducing myself to people, to other writers, to agents. And you have an opportunity to introduce yourself, talk about what you're working on. This is when coming up with that one-line pitch is really, really helpful. We're diving into that tomorrow. Network and ask people, who do you know? I believe that we're 7 degrees of separation from anyone. Okay, anybody on the planet, we are 7 degrees of separation from. What that means is that you might have a friend who knows an agent who might be willing to read a query, who might be willing to look at the first 10 of your manuscript, who might be willing to take a look at your first chapter. someone in the industry. Maybe it's an assistant agent. Maybe it's someone in the rights department at Curtis Brown UK. Maybe it's someone who's an intern at Trident Media in New York. You don't know who you know until you start asking. Okay. You want to power up, you want to be in this, you want to really make connections, you've got to start asking. There are a lot of questions that you could ask me. There are a lot of questions that you could ask me, but have you asked those questions? I would be more than happy to answer them. And something that's really interesting, and has to go back to the humbleness and the humility that we talked about yesterday, is that what I learned, and particularly in Hollywood, which might surprise you, is that because people know that it takes consistency, persistence, to break in, so to speak, to break in this kind of an industry, a creative industry of any kind, that people know that. And when you ask an agent or you ask a favor of someone that you know, and they put you in touch with someone and you talk with them on the phone and they say, well, why don't you go ahead and send me your first chapter? I'll take a look at it. Call me in a week, or give me 2 weeks and follow up with me, and I'll let you know. They mean it. They mean it. And guess what? They will read it. They will find time and they will read it. I cannot tell you how many agents I met simply because I asked the people in my world, who do you know? Who do you know? So think about that, and think about who your friends might know, and spin it out, groups, obviously you're in groups online. That's always great. And then of course, I always like to touch base about industry publications and industry language, feeling like you're a part of an industry, any kind of creative industry, publishing, entertainment, means you know what's going on. You know who the players are. You know who the good agents are. You know who the agents are that are getting deals. And this is you're reading the trades, right? And for books, it's going to be Publishers Weekly, Publishers Marketplace. You might even want to read Writer's Digest, subscribe to that, get it into your inbox, and make a point of looking at, you might not look at every single thing that comes in, but make a point of looking at that and get familiar with the industry language. These are things that you can do. They don't cost anything, except if you want to get Publishers Marketplace. I've said this before, I recommend getting at least a month subscription of this is $25. But once you start looking for agents, it's going to show you, when you plug those agents' names in, what deals they've done within the past 6 to 12 months. And you want to make sure that you line yourself up with an agent who's doing deals. I mean, if this agent that you heard about, you think, oh, this one might be good for my book, but they haven't done a book deal in 2 years, yeah, I'm not thinking that's a good agent for you. Okay, you want results. You're not low-hanging fruit. You're not a rotten apple on the ground. You are the apple at the top of the tree, as I always tell my girls. You're the apple at the top of the tree. You deserve the other apple at the top of the tree. It also means that you do good work. Your writing has to show up. Your writing has to show up, but you have to be this active participant in your career. That's really what it's about. Merge those two together, and whew, fireworks are going to happen. Fireworks are definitely going to go off. And again, just attend in person if you can. If there's any kind of event. Now, I don't know if you can do this. I'm not in a position to do this at the moment, but boy, I would love to. There is a annual writers conference, and I'm going to do one. I'm going to tell you about mine down the road. It's not going to happen this year. It'll be next year, but I'm super excited. Anyway, this other one is in Kauai, and it's a writer's retreat, and it happens, I think, usually every November. And I think you could even Google Kauai writer's retreat. So if you want to be on an island off the coast of California, 5 hours out into the Pacific, this is really cool. And identify these conferences, because I'm talking about this one because they have really good agents that attend in person. How does it feel to be able to write to this agent when you're ready? Hey, Tom, we met at the Kauai Writers Conference. You might recall that we were talking about this and we were laughing around the luau. I don't know, making up, right? That closing luau was really fun. And I really enjoyed meeting you. Writing because you had said, when I'm ready, please send my manuscript. And I'm doing that. It's ready, it's finished, and I wanted to share it with you now. Meet blah, 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 a 75,000 word science fiction, whatever. You see where I'm going? And then carry on. So those personal connections that you make at these conferences, that's big. That is big. That really opens doors. Now, I get it. We're not all in positions to be able to fly off to Kauai. There might be a writers' conference in your town that pulls in the same kind of level agents, or if you can take a trip to London. There are a lot of really great, like if you're anywhere near the UK, there's a lot of great writers' conferences. Here's another one. There is it's at Clifton House. It's every October. It's the annual writers. I want to say it's the annual writers convention. I mean, it's very high level. Just investigate it. See what's out there. It's not like you're going to go to it, but see what's out there. Who is attending these kinds of events? And when you find one that's close to you, go see what you can do. You'll save on paying for it, obviously, if there's no accommodations and whatnot involved. Some writers, there's a New York Pitch Fest. I had a client who attended. She said it was very high ticket. It was like $800 to attend. Plus she had to go to New York, and staying there for 3 days was a lot of money, even though she lived locally. In a state nearby, it was still a lot. So I get that. It's not always doable, but if it is doable, or if it's something you can dog ear for the next year, do that. But there are also a lot of free events as well. So think about that. So I think you get where I'm going with that. So we're going to move on to number 9. This was something that I actually have to say I thought of right before we started. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to add this. This is really important to get into, to stay as a pro author in mindset and in behavior. And that is to analyze your results. What's working for you and what's not been working for you? This is really important, and it does require a level of honesty, but not with judgment. I talked about judgment yesterday, that it's okay to judge your results. And yes, that is true. But now today, instead of judging, use the word analyze. Okay, expand it. Let's break it down to really what I'm talking about is analyzing your results. If you're getting results, if you're pitching and you're getting results, well, your pitch is good. You're getting people who are saying, let me see your first chapter. Let me read your manuscript. The knock on the door has been opened and you're getting some results. But if it's not going any further than that, you're not getting offers of representation, that means something's not working. So you have to analyze that like a scientist and figure out, what is it in the writing that's not showing up? Do I have a strong story arc, beginning, middle, and end? Now, there's lots of different ways to structure your work. A lot of different ways. But when you're pitching a first book, I'm going to really suggest that you stick with tried and true, as every good story has a beginning, middle, and end. There are times when we can break the rules and times where we just shouldn't break the rules, because beginning, middle, and end always works all day long. And that's a formula that I wouldn't want you to start messing around with, because it just wouldn't work. So stick with that and start there. Does my book, and nonfiction guys, you can think of it this way as well. Even though your book is not told in a story, you are sharing information in a story-like way. So everything should have beginning, middle, and end. So what's not landing? What is it in the first act, the second act, the third act? Or is it in the tone of your book? Or is it in the pacing? What's missing? Was there an inciting incident that just never showed up on the first 3 pages? Like, what's the reason for your book? Why am I reading this? Why is the agent reading this? And put yourself, when you're analyzing your results, in the agent's seat. Take yourself out of it. Take yourself out of it. This is why when I was talking about being, judging your work, judge it as an agent, not as yourself, because you're emotional, you're attached to it. You love every word you ever wrote. This is the best line. It might not be a line that's going to sell your book. Remember, this is a business. You're here to sell your books. So your job is to make it saleable. So analyze those results, what's working and what's not working. For those of you, if I throw out the word inciting incident, that's a new one for you. I use a lot of words that show up in screenwriting, because again, that's my background, even though I've had agents in books. Inciting incident is the one event that sets off the entire story. So I break it down to Little Red Riding Hood. The inciting incident for Little Red Riding Hood isn't the wolf. The inciting incident is that Little Red Riding Hood was asked to go to Grandma's house. That's the inciting incident. Had Little Red Riding Hood never gone into the forest to go to Grandma's house, there wouldn't have been a story. So it's that event that propelled it forward. Okay, that's your inciting incident. And then you build from there. And then it's got to be conflict that keeps your story moving in the right direction, and a level of risk, a level of tension, and knowing sort of that beautiful flow of story. Okay, how are you pulling the reader in? Are you keeping them on the page? So those are all things that you need to analyze. And while my job is really to, as sort of a pitch expert, if you will, is to help make sure that you're packaging your book in a way that's going to get you the knock on the door that open and the door to open. The writing job is your job. And I will often share things that you can do to make it better. But again, if you're not getting the results, you've got to look at the writing. Okay. Moving along. So I'm really excited about this next bit. Those are all the 9 steps to activating that pro author in you and keeping that alive, to just take with you and become a part of you. And now you have a little bit more information to work with. But the activation log is something that is going to help keep you on track. It's also going to break down some of the barriers that might be in front of you. Those like, oh, but the self-doubt, the negative chatter, the disbelief, which would equate to doubt, things of that nature that might come up, or a sense of like, it's not working, I'm pitching, but it's not working, all those things. So the activation log is something that I came up with, but I have to credit again, Shonda Rhimes for planting the seed in my head. I just been following so many things of what she's done. And this is a variation of something that she talks about. And I'm calling it the activation log. So the activation log, it looks like this. And this is something that you can create to help you finish and get an agent and get a book deal, right? So you're going to be creating your log. And the first thing that's going to go into your log, and you can do this in a journal form if you want to go out and grab even a spiral notebook, something clean. This is what it is, devoted, or a file on your computer, whatever you want to do, right? You're going to start out listing your yes goals. And this is all about things that you're saying yes to, the things that you're going to agree to, okay? And you're going to be accountable for this. So every 2 weeks, every 6 weeks, you're going to sort of analyze progress, but every day you're going to be writing in this log, in this activation log. And I'll get a little bit more clear on that in the next couple of slides. So it's your logbook, you get to make the rules, okay? So however often you want to write in it, check in. These are just guidelines. I'm just throwing them out there to give you something to think about. But really, at the end of the day, it's up to you. The progress that you make is up to you. Again, you're the participant in your own success. So the buck stops with you. Let's see. Here we go. So you're going to start with your mission statement. This is the best way, I think, to clarify a little bit more. So you've got your journal open. Start with your mission statement. A lot of you put your mission statement inside the group yesterday and this morning, and I loved it. Oh my gosh, you guys are on fire. I was so excited to see these mission statements. And guys, if you want to read other people's mission statements inside the Pro Author Activation Lab, go ahead and do that. I mean, your heart, everybody's heart is in the right place. It's to serve and what you want to add to the table. I just there's so many of them, so good. So in your journal, in your log, activation log, start with your mission statement and what you will say yes to, what you hope to change. And then I want you to put your truth, what you know to be true about you. And it's that thing that I'll share mine. One of my many sort of ugly truths. I guess you could call this your ugly truth about you. Remember, this is just for you. Okay. You don't need to be sharing this with anybody. Nobody needs to know this. So one of mine is that I can't get out of my own way a lot of the time. And I can finish things up to a point, and then it just sits there. And I come up with all these things like, oh, well, I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I'll get back to it. And I have this sense like I don't have enough time. I cannot divide myself. I'll even illustrate it a little bit better. When I first co-founded my production company and we were expanding, my partner was saying, we need to take on more projects. And we had opportunity to do that. We got a lot of people that wanted to work with us, which was fantastic. That's what you want, right? And my first inclination was, I can't do that. I can't, it was physically inside of me. Like I was aching, like, I don't know how to split myself in two. I can only focus on one thing at one time. It was like paralyzing, but I wouldn't have been able to expand my business if I didn't come to terms with that piece of myself. Like, what was it that was stopping me from thinking that I couldn't handle more than one thing? Of course I could. I might need to delegate, which I don't like to do because I'm a control freak. So that's another one of my truths. I tend to want to control everything, which makes it harder to accomplish things, because if everything stops with you and you have to be in charge of everything, it's very hard to add on. So these are things that affect my results oftentimes. And the best way to do that is just to do what Martin Scorsese says, is wake up in the morning and do it anyway. Say, yes, I'm doing it anyway. So this activation log is about saying yes to doing those things anyway. And here's the way that you plan it moving forward. How is this really going to work, Linda? Well, what you're going to do is you pick one thing that you will say yes to this month. Okay, so this isn't about like, I'm going to write, I'm going to query agents, I'm going to finish my book. That is looking at the entire elephant, like we talked about earlier, and trying to consume the entire thing. It's just not possible. It's not possible. So you're going to pick one thing per month. Okay. Now, this is also, I should just put a little note on this. This is going to affect all parts of your life. So there's a lot of benefits. It's not just going to affect your ability to show up as an author. It's going to affect your entire life. And it's going to just really be like this amazing gift if you allow it. Okay. So pick one thing that you say yes to. And one thing, I mean something along the lines of, these are ideas. Okay. So you can say yes to, maybe you're going to say yes to creativity. You're going to say yes to writing or rewriting something or revising, organizing, pitching, research, getting help for something, asking for help. Maybe that's something you want to say yes to this month. And in other ways, not just your professional career as an author, but other ways, you've got to go out on a limb here. If you're not asking for help in your writing, I'm guessing you're probably not asking help in other areas of your life. So a way that you can start asking for help in your writing is by asking for help in other ways, other areas of your life as well, or getting information. I just want to touch base on this one. I think I mentioned it up at the beginning, but one of the things that stops us from moving forward, and I'm guilty of this too, absolutely, as a human raised by humans, I am guilty of this, of thinking I can do it all myself, trying to figure it out myself, but then suddenly I'm paralyzed because what's stopping me is I don't know how to move forward. I don't have the information. How do I make my book better? I'm not getting results I'm getting my queries landing, but nobody's picking up my book. So how do I make my book better? And so you sit there and you're like, okay, I'll try this and that, but it's not working. you need to get the information. So if you don't even know how to write a book, find out how to structure a book. Find out how to put together what's it called? An outline. A beat sheet is a fabulous thing. What's a beat sheet? Figure these things out. Do the research, get the information. I always tell my girls, when they're, oh, I don't know, I just can't do that. Oh, because, well, what if we did this? Oh, I didn't know I could do that. I hear from them sometimes. I didn't know I could do that because they didn't know to ask, or they didn't have the information. So once you get the information might be power, but it's what you do with that information that's going to make the difference. So maybe say yes to that kind of thing. There are some other things that you can say yes to as well. And again, these are just, I'm spitballing ideas, guys. So it can be whatever you want it to be. You can say yes to patience, confidence, enthusiasm, motivation, persistence, clarity, showing up for you and this project. Like not taking your excuses anymore. Like you're not going to do it. You're going to do the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When you don't want to get out of bed early in the morning and write, granted, I couldn't do that, but I do have to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. I do have to admit that my creative time, here's something that might work for you too. Know your creative time of day and make sure that you use that time for your writing. For me, it's morning. By the time after lunch, I am a bag of zeros. The only thing I'm good for is making phone calls and following up on emails, or maybe having some conversations along that time, wrapping up business, whatever, right? But in the morning, from about 8 to 11, if I can sit down to write, that is my most productive time. If I can take a moment to read, I always read in the morning. That's sort of my ritual. I always have a book going, and I have a notebook with me. And it might be a fiction book. It might be a nonfiction book. It might be something on writing. Who knows what it is? But the ideas that are coming to me as I'm reading, it's like crazy. Yes, I write in books. I have markers. They're all over the place. I highlight, I dog ear, I do it all. But these are things that inspire me. And then I take that and I sit down at my computer and I go. So know when your creative energy is alive and has a pulse, and use it to your advantage. So that might be a way of showing up for yourself. And you want to track that a little bit. How about giving yourself some gosh darn respect that you're doing something that most people would say, wouldn't do, because it's hard. It takes time, right? Or focus, humility, staying on course. These are all ways that you can say yes to yourself each month. And remember, you just want to pick one thing. You don't want to overwhelm yourself, for crying out loud. Why? Don't make the stakes so high that you fail. That is a recipe for disaster. And pro authors don't do that. They are realistic and they know their limitations. They know their capabilities. They know when to tap into their creativity. These are things we learn over time, guys. These are things we learn over time. The more you know you, I say, know thyself. Know thyself. The more you know you, the more you're going to be able to show up for you and give yourself the results, or get the results that you're really looking for in your pro author life. Okay, so this is an example of a page of your journal. So remember, at the beginning, you've got your mission statement. You've got things that you want to say yes to. I've given you some ideas. You're going to pick one that you want to say yes to this month. Doesn't have to start, well, hey, it's March 1st. It's March 1st. You could start today if you want to. Why not? Start March 1st, but it doesn't matter. Start any day. Really doesn't matter at all. But so example, you've got March 1st, so the month of March. Let's say you want to work on discipline. So every day you want to check in with your journal at the end of the day, or maybe you want to do it the next morning. And again, if you don't do it every day, do it once a week, whatever, but try to at least do it weekly. So yeses that you handled today, ways that you showed up using that discipline muscle. Write about those. What you gained by doing that. I think this one, number 2 here, is super important, because when you start to recognize the benefits of you showing up, being disciplined, your brain is going to be like, oh, this is like candy. Your brain is going to love that. And guess what? It's going to make you more disciplined. It's going to make you show up again tomorrow, even more disciplined than you were the day before. And then when you take a look at what was the hard part about doing it, though? Did you have to do Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to get out of bed? And was that hard to do? Maybe it was that. So think about these things. Again, You make up the rules. This is just an idea. I'm just suggesting it. If it helps you to finish and to recognize that you're a pro, you deserve a seat at the table, start acting like it, start behaving like it. Success isn't for the faint of heart. We all have variations of success, and it looks different for each and every one of us. Some of us want big success. Some of us don't care about that. They just want to write good books and have people like them. That's success. Success might be that, you just feel good. You just feel good every day. You have nice friends. You're happy with your surroundings. You're happy with who you are. You're a kind, good person. That might be success for you. And guess what else? You get to write books and share some really fun stories with people. That feels really good. Get to the feeling place of it, the feeling place of why you're doing this. And it all ties into your ability to be successful and give it some meaning so that you can actually accomplish your goals. So important to do that, to feel like we have a purpose, meaning in life. And, you didn't just decide. If you decided to be an author, if you decided to write a book, it's because something was inside of you that you had to share or wanted to share. You had a great story, or just this nagging need to do it. It's phenomenal. Not everybody has that. Believe it or not, not everyone feels like you and me in regard to that. All right. So what's happening here? Where did this slide go? All right, let's go to the next one. All right. So homework for today. I do have some homework for you today. Remember, yesterday was write your mission statement. Today's homework is to begin your activation log if you want to do it. If you want, that's a total, obviously homework is subjective. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But these are just ideas. I would love for you to do it because I think it will help you. I think it'll be fun. And of course, if you think of it with fun and you approach it with fun, approach is something else that's super important, to approach things in a way that we know we've got a chance. That's the other thing, let's pause for a second in the approach. To approach pitching and to approach writing your book in a way that feels really good, not like this is hard. There's so many people on social media. It's so hard to get a literary agent. So hard. No, it's not. It's not hard to get a literary agent. I got two offers from two top literary agents in less than 10 days. If you guys have been with me for a while, you know the story that one of them actually within 24 hours of receiving my query called me on the phone and offered me representation. It can happen if you have a good pitch and a good idea. It comes down to your writing and it comes down to your pitch. Okay. It's possible to get a literary agent. Yes. Is it competitive? Yeah, but they need you. They need you. Agents need you. Without you, I've said this before, they don't have anything to sell. So hello, you can do this. It's doable. It is doable. All right. So watching 2 TED Talks, I would love to suggest 2 TED Talks to you that piggyback on some of the activation points that we talked about today. If you haven't seen them, they're really fun. Out of the 2, I'm going to recommend Mel Robbins, but both are great. Amy Cuddy's Power Posing. This was a book that Amy Cuddy is I think she's a PhD in something. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know more about that. She's a PhD in something. This is a TED Talk she did a while ago. She did a book, I think it was even just called Power Posing. And the book deal, it was a 7-figure book deal. She got, I think, $1 million for it. And this was about 4 years ago. This is what can happen. If you're an expert in something in a field and you really know your topic and you get the industry excited about what you're talking about, you can land yourself a 7-figure deal. So it happens. She got one. And so the power posing again it is important to feel like you deserve this, like you can do it and all that. If you feel like power posing, remember my Shonda Rhimes does this. And if she does it, I'm doing it. Power posing is a cool thing. Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. She, not only the book do I recommend, but watch her TED talk. It's really inspiring, and it'll help keep that fire burning under you. And then I'm going to make available to you a pro author contract. I am going to be putting this in the group. And if you'd like a copy emailed to you, I will send it to you. It will be available later today inside the group. But if you sign it, you're committing to yourself as a pro author. You're committing to being on this journey. You're not going to have in your back pocket, if this doesn't work, I'll just self-publish. That's not part of the contract. The contract is that you're showing up, you're doing this, you have a career as an author, and you're just going to keep pitching, and you're going to learn along the way. And if you fail, you're going to go back at it. You're going to go out swinging. Not to say that you can't self-publish other things, but that your commitment, if you have commercial idea, and we'll be talking more about this tomorrow, if you have certain types of ideas, get agents. Certain types of ideas don't get agents. So if you have ideas that are going to get agent attention or have the potential, stay the course. Stay the course. There's a lot of, books that have been pitched time. Like how many times did J.K. Rowling pitch her book? How many times did Jack Canfield pitch Chicken Soup for the Souls? There's a lot of writers out there who have pitched and been told no, 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 no. And then suddenly one day they've got this mega career, who knew? So sign that contract if that's what you want. And if you don't want to sign it online, you don't even want to sign it, doesn't matter. It's up to you, but I'm going to make it available to you if that sounds fun to you. And then I just want to touch base a little bit about what we're going to do tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a really intense teaching day. So make sure you've got some writing utensil, your computer open. If you have something extra, second computer or whatever, you're looking at me on your phone, you got your computer, but there's going to be a lot of information, or just watch the replay to do your notes. But tomorrow is all about elevating your pitch to sell your book. We're going to be talking about positioning your book, finding the right words to sell your book, the perfect one-line pitch. I'm going to help you come up with, I like the word log line. Another word for it is hook. Another word for it is pitch. All of them mean the same. It's that one sentence, that the elevator pitch. Okay. We're going to talk about how to do that in a way that is going to serve your story. It's one of the hardest things to write. So we're not going to be changing worlds tomorrow when we talk about it, but you're going to know for once and for all what makes a really good log line, that one line elevator pitch. Because hey, you never know if you're on the metro, if you're in a plane, if you're in the park sitting down, you never know who is sitting next to you. Remember that 7 degrees of separation. You never know who's in your world. I have to give you a note about my mom for a sec. My mom is a very curious woman. She's now 89 years old and still a firecracker, goes to the gym and the whole thing. Back in the day when she had a big career, she was the kind of person that still is just curious as the day is long. I always told her she should have been a private investigator because she loves to ask questions. But she was on a plane and she was sitting next to, I think she was coming up to DC because I'm in DC, and she was on a plane sitting next to a senator who lived in Florida. And she started talking about something. And he gave her some information, and he said, if you need to, you can follow up with me. Well, my gosh, by George, she followed up with this guy. Now, how did she know she was going to be sitting next to some senator who was going to be able to give her some information, and he actually helped? You don't know. And don't say, this never happens to me. It can happen to you. It happens to people. There are doors. There's so many doors out there. So think limitless. Think limitless. Then getting back to what we're doing tomorrow. This is going to excite you, I think, a lot. It's the Hollywood pitch test, the 6-step formula. This is something that you're going to be able to drop your story into or your book into and see if it actually hits all of these points. I think you're really going to like it. It's going to help you develop your concept pitch. Your concept, that's the term I use. You could think of it as your summary in your query. Okay, or a mini synopsis, if you will, but it's the Hollywood pitch test 6-step formula. And then we're going to be talking about what ideas sell and what ideas don't sell. I think you're going to love it. As I said, it's a heavy teaching session tomorrow, and then Thursday, all the variations people can say no, and what you do if you get these no's, how to stay in the game, and keep going, and ways to turn no's into yeses. So that's going to be Thursday. Okay. I think I've just got one last slide here. I do. What is it? Surprise me. Right. Oh, the equation, of course, is you and your writing. That's what's going to keep you in the game. That's what pro authors have. They show up as themselves. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to ask questions. They're willing to ask for help. They are willing to be vulnerable and willing to be patient, take the time, and not use that back pocket card, like, I think I'll just self-publish, right? They know, they have the vision, and they keep going forward. So I'm going to drop down. Julia, hey, good to see you, by the way. Thank you for showing up. I'm going to end the screen share, and we'll just drop in for a second. Julia, I'm recording, so I don't know if you want to be recorded. I can stop recording now, and we can have a chat if you like for a minute. Do you want to do that for a sec? Does that sound good? Okay, great. All right. So folks, I'm going to stop recording, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And thank you so much for being with me and for watching the replay. Do drop any comments you might have down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.